Welcome back to Net Impact. Once again, I'm your host, Fred Menachem, and I'm pretty excited about today. We're joined by a gentleman by the name of Darren Argyle, and Darren's an internationally recognized executive in cybersecurity with nearly 20 years of experience. I believe it might be more, in cybersecurity across Singapore, the United Kingdom, and Australia. And I know you've held roles such as a Group Chief Information Security Risk Officer. You were at Standard Chartered Bank. You've managed security risks across global operations. Also served as the Group CISO at Qantas Airlines. You were at S&P Global and held leadership positions at Symantec and IBM.
Yeah.
His global works help multinational organizations build cyber resilience across various regulatory environments. Darren has co-founded, and this is exciting, I'm looking forward to getting into this, the Cyber Leadership Institute in 2018, which helps professionals transition into leadership roles. And he's also the author of a book on leadership and cybersecurity, which we're going to talk about, which offers insights into bridging technical expertise and business strategy. And now I'm going to embarrass him a little bit, but his leadership's earned him a lot of recognitions. Top 100 CISOs globally over 3 years, up through 2022. He's been featured on the cover of SC Magazine. Top 100 security influencers globally back in 2018. Wow, this is a lot, Darren. Innovator of the Year for SANS Institute 2022. Outstanding cybersecurity professional for cyber OSPAs and the top 30 cyber leaders over a course of 2 years in CISO magazine. And he also advises Night Dragon, which is a cybersecurity investment firm, which is one of, we fall into their portfolio, and was named as an ambassador for the Global Cyber Alliance for his work advising small businesses. And he's a fitness enthusiast and meditation advocate. So anyhow, Darren, thank you so much for joining us. So great to see you.
Thank you, Fred. I am a little bit embarrassed by that introduction, but thank you. I much appreciate it. And it's great being here. So appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and the Thrive DX team.
It's my pleasure. I'm so glad to have you. Now, I'm just going to start really quick here. So you've written a book, and I believe it's called The Cyber Leadership Imperative. So let's just get right into it, man. We're going to get into all your background, but I want to start with the book. Now, do you have a copy of it there next to you?
You can see it
right behind you. All right.
It's here as well, right? So, so we've been in business since 2018 in the Cyber Leadership Institute, and we haven't written anything apart from the blogs and the papers and everything else. So we said, you know what? It would be great to share what we've pulled together in terms of our training courses and what we're doing just into a concise book so people can understand more about it. And it's the three of us. So it's a co-authored book with Phil Zongo and Jan Schroeder. They're my two co-founders at the Cyber Leadership Institute. And we literally just launched it a couple of months ago. And already it's a best-selling book, or in that best-selling category. So, which is fantastic. So we're extremely excited about that. In fact, we did a launch in Sydney with some book signings, and we're now going to be doing another launch in Melbourne. And I'll be taking this same book, by the way, to Dubai, because the workshop that I'm running in Dubai is all about the key aspects of this book. So super excited about that.
So when did the book come out?
Come out just a couple of months ago. So it's pretty hot off the press, actually.
And it's already, you said it's already bestseller, huh?
Yeah, already on the bestseller list. Yeah, I don't know if that's global, probably for just Australia, but it's marked as on the best-selling list. So, which is great.
Well, that's pretty exciting, actually. So tell us a little bit about 5 takeaways from the book. I don't mean to put you on the spot, even if it's 3.
Yeah,
I know you probably could talk about 10. So
yeah, no, well, actually, there is 5 takeaways that the book kind of highlights. So, first one is stand out in executive interviews. We know that it's super important if you're going to be going for a new role, get promoted. What do you need to do to make yourself differentiate yourself from others, stand out from the crowd? Quite often, a lot of CISOs in their first 100 days need to have impact and deliver with confidence. So we talk about how you can do that in your first 100 days and be successful. How do you actually become a cybersecurity executive? You're a technical specialist, but what does it really mean to be able to communicate with the C-suite and the board? That's the next one. Building high-performance teams. We're nothing if we can't build a team around us to help us deliver. you're not going to deliver anything on your own and be successful. So how do you engage a team, build a team, and get them all moving in the right direction? And then the last thing is literally just being able to understand and navigate some of the complex cybersecurity challenges that we see in our landscape. How can we make those understandable to non-technical people like board members? So it's how do you navigate that complex environment from a career perspective? And I think that's one of the key things, because, it's tricky, it's stressful, and it needs a lot of work.
I would imagine that most of this stuff you just learned from, right, just hitting the ground, because you didn't have a traditional that not there was a traditional cyber background, but this is all from your own experience, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, this was 25 years ago, thrust into a role that I was completely unprepared for, which was just about, I think it would have been about 1997, something like that. And within only the first year, we'd been hit by one of the most notorious viruses that's ever been, which crippled infrastructures globally, called the I Love You virus. And for those of us who are of a certain age, will definitely remember that.
May of 2000, right?
Yeah. And it was,
I remember,
it was catastrophic in terms of what it did to infrastructure. And it was catastrophic to the organization that I was working for. And all of a sudden I was put on the spot. It's like, what do we do, Darren? And I'd literally only been in the role, less than a year. And that was my only introduction to cybersecurity. So, yeah, stressful, but a great learning experience. And I was they called it the love bug, but actually it was the bug actually for me that got me into cybersecurity and kept me fixated on, I just love this, being able to solve complex problems.
In life, it's sometimes nobody wants to not necessarily fail, but be hit with something like that without really knowing what the heck to do, right? And probably was, I imagine in many ways, it kind of shaped who you are and how you lead, I would think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to, there's a lot of dealing with adversity. And I think if you look at cybersecurity as an industry, it's one of those things that's been evolving quite quickly, in fact, rapidly, to the point where, the criminals are always one step ahead. It's no different to, the physical kind of policing work that happens. And because of that, you're always on the back foot, always responding to incidents. It can be becoming quite challenging, but you have to have a certain attitude to be able to kind of deal with some of this stress. And I think that's an important aspect to it, really.
Well, that's the perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about next. So, I really want to get into, man, we're going to get a little broad here, right? So,
no worries.
Who is this, right? Exactly. Look at that smile, man. You ready for this? Who is this, like, good-looking Aussie Argyle playing, by the way, which I learned a lot about, Scottish, Australian. I mean, talk about a big family. That's another show we can do. Good-looking Daniel Craig, James Bond, badass over here. Who the hell are you, man?
Yeah, my background. I mean, I come from a background that is about as poor as you could get without being homeless, quite honestly. I grew up in a house where there was frost on the inside of the window. It was so cold on the night, we couldn't afford to put the heating on. This was what it was like. And we used to go to bed I was living in the north of England, which is, pretty rough place at the time. I grew up in pubs. We used to live above pubs. My father and mother we used to run very rough bars in the town centres of Leeds and Bradford in Yorkshire. So I grew up in an environment where you kind of had to almost fight for your survival, not only in the physical sense, in the cold, harsh winters that we had up there, but also in a practical sense. You're in the pub environment. They're often very violent, where people were fighting. So, by the time I got to the point of working in the pub, even just glass collecting for my parents, because I wasn't quite old enough, fights would break out. My dad would have to get involved, and me and my brother were right in the middle of that often, most weekends, trying to help calm the problems. And you'd catch a few hits, and you'd obviously have to try to defend yourself. So it was quite a difficult, challenging environment, but it did definitely shape the type of person that I became today. And unfortunately, I had ADHD and a bunch of other kind of mild dyslexia and things. So school for me wasn't anything successful. In fact, I left school with no qualifications. So everything that I've learned from then to where I am today has been literally just through my own interest and real hard dedication.
It's funny you bring that up because I also struggle with ADHD.
Ah,
So
okay.
I clearly understand that. In fact, it's one of the things that drives everybody crazy at times. But all joking aside, no, I get it. And it's you learn in a different way. In some ways, right? It makes you really in tune to things,
Yeah.
seeing things outside of the box, right?
Yeah,
So I
100%.
imagine when you're in the bar, right? Maybe you can catch a nuance quick and stop a fight before it's happening. And also it makes you think out of the box, but it can also be difficult. How did that impact you? Like, you know, as a kid and then later on in life? How
Yeah.
did you compensate for some of that?
Well, yeah. So if you've been through it, Fred, as well, I guess a lot of this will resonate with you. I mean, my school reports said pretty much the same thing. Darren's got huge potential, but he's easily distracted. It was a very
That's right.
consistent thing. And it was true. And what I didn't realize is that even ancestrally, being able to be distracted easily is actually a good survival tactic. I didn't know this till actually later on, but if you can spot things that other people don't spot, it was a good survival tactic actually, if we take us back to the tribal days. But unfortunately, in today's world, in the way that we are educated through the schooling system, you have to be 100% focused on what you're doing to be able to deliver. So that it's not conducive to somebody who's got ADHD and mild dyslexia, quite honestly. So you just have to find ways to overcome it. And I think the way that it shaped me is finding people around me who can help compensate for some of those inabilities to focus. My wife, by the way, is brilliant at focusing. So she's really helped me in many ways. And if I look at all the teams that I've managed over the years, I've put together blended teams that cooperate really well, who help compensate for my difficulties. And I'm able to use some of my leadership qualities to help them in different areas. And I think it's become a lesson for me, is that you never achieve something truly on your own. It's a team sport, really.
So what I wanted to say about that, so that's very interesting because, throughout my life, I always, when we were young, similar to you, it was not always easy. We're similar ages. You're a few years on me, man. So I got to throw that out there, but we're similar, right? But we're similar ages. And so those days, look, especially in the environment you grew up in, nobody's telling you, hey, you have ADD, like we're going to see you in a corner. No, you're learning how to throw punches and really diffuse situations, which we'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah.
But and I think, for me, and I'm sure for you, of course, there were things that we were great at because we compensated, but there were struggles. And I think, sometimes I used to try to focus on all my weaknesses, right, and improve them. But I realized let other people fill that void, right? And I'm assuming that's similar what you see even in any kind of team, right? It doesn't have to be people with ADHD, but people have weaknesses and strengths. I'm assuming throughout your career that's been something that's played a huge role.
Yeah, and it's been a big part of how I've just operated within life. And obviously, I'd mentioned my partner, and there's many ways that we work as a team. And I actually do believe the success of the marriage is, and we've been married, for how many years? 24 years now, because it was 2000. So that was 24 years. And the years before that would have been about 28 years. So that partnership of working as a partnership and doing what each of you are good at or enjoy actually is important. And then when it comes to the teams that I've built over the years, and I've loved leadership, it's one of the things that has been at the center of everything that I've done, whether it's personal leadership, leading in an organization, or building a team. You have to find out what people want to do, enjoy doing, and give them that opportunity, lots of empowerment, and then get that complementing team. Because when you do that, you build resilience in the team as well. And in the world of cybersecurity, where stress is about a whole-time high, you need that kind of team resilience as well. So building high-performing teams is very rewarding. And actually, when I look at what we've been doing in the Cyber Leadership Institute, a lot of that is building a community of different skill sets and opportunities. So just trying to understand people, I think, and that connection is a core part of what we have to do.
And in the short time I've gotten to know you, I think one thing that that you carry is you have empathy. You're a technical guy who also has leadership, and you have people skills. And I think, and I imagine, I don't want to speak for you, but, and we're going to move on to another topic in a moment, but I want to kind of just hit this for a moment. Growing up in the bar business, it's like any other business, but you're thrown into, you're a young kid. How old were you when you started working in that business?
Well, I left.
I mean, working in it.
Yeah, I mean,
No, when
literally.
you're a kid, I'm saying.
Yeah, straight from school. So
Right.
we're literally, so
Right.
I was glass collecting at the age of 14 in my dad's firm. Literally, me and my brother were doing that. My brother became a chef in the kind
Yeah.
of bar business. But then I kind of, when I was 16, because I left school at 16, didn't go to college or university or anything, I was then just helping my dad and you can't drink until you're 18, but I was literally working in a pub. So from 18, I was officially working behind a bar, and I did that from the age of 18 till about the age of 25, not just helping my dad. My brother and I then teamed up and we started running restaurants, bars, nightclubs, which, by the way, at that age, you can imagine two guys,
Oh
two
my
brothers.
God.
It was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it, but you were burnt out every week because just going out and the partying and everything else, which was great. But the one thing that I learned a lot through that business was you're definitely dealing with people every single day. You're dealing with a lot of people in very different backgrounds. You'll get people coming in some of our restaurants who are from the very wealthy backgrounds. And then you've got in the kind of other side of the bars, you've got people who are not from that. So, and this huge spectrum of people that you need to learn to communicate with, diffuse situations, because there'll always be arguments when alcohol's around, unfortunately. But there's a lot of fun as well. So knowing how to enjoy yourself was fun, right? So we really got the best out of it.
But I think that there's not enough in this world today where people are actually living by experience. With the social media and all that you see with your own kids. I know you have two kids, and I made a joke. You married up, right? Your wife pulled you out of that.
100%. Yeah, I definitely married up.
But that's life experience. You can't beat that. Now let's go move on a little bit, Darren, to look, you transitioned, like you said, 16 years old, dropped out of school, glass collecting, bar business, different times. So you started out managing a help desk, right?
Yeah.
And let's talk about that trajectory. How did that work?
Yeah, so this was literally the bit about marrying up. So I moved down south to be with this girl. Met her. Actually, she came into one of the restaurants that I was working at the time that I was managing, and I said, who is this girl? There's this instant attraction across the room. And, skip forward a few months later, I literally packed my job in this restaurant, moved down to London, which is where she was living, just north of London. I was staying with a friend. We were still communicating. And, she said, we've got this role going in the company, a company called Whitbreads, and it's going to be managing a help desk. I had no technology skills, right? Zero technology skills. And, but I knew how to manage people. And actually, I went for the interview. My wife, on evenings, would help me work on a computer. She'd teach me how to work on a computer. I landed this job, and because computers had just come out around about that time. But I was there to manage the team. Unfortunately, I was nearly out of a job within about 6 months, by the way. Because although I could manage the team, I wasn't doing that. I was learning the job. I was learning the technology. So strangely enough, I was demoted at that time to being in the team. You can manage, and I had to swallow my pride. And manager said, well, sorry, it's not working out. Within another 6 months, I was back managing the team. I'd obviously got some confidence. But then within a very short space of time of managing the help desk, this role came up in IT security for the company. And they said, this guy's just vacated down. We'd love you to take this on. I knew nothing about IT security, but I took it on. And that's where literally my career started in IT security, almost by accident, quite honestly. Had a bit of a stop-start in the early days, but then got into IT security. This is when we got hit by the I love you virus, baptism by fire. I mean, the ability to be able to navigate this large organization, Whitbread, in the UK, which is now obviously international, but was a brewing organization back then principally, was quite a complex thing to deal with. It was difficult. But the one thing it gave me access to was the senior leadership of the organization, which then I thrived on. I've got this opportunity, this platform. So then I've realized that this was potentially one of those things that isn't going away. It's only going to get more important. And then I just embraced it. It wasn't long actually before an opportunity found me. I was contacted by IBM. They were looking for an IT security manager for a bunch of outsourcing accounts. Back in 2000 or late 2000s, IBM was really going big into the outsourcing world. And pretty much every large organization was looking to outsource its infrastructure, outsource its applications. And they wanted somebody specifically to look at the IT security aspects of that. Now, from a team of pretty much zero, grew to managing a team of over 200 people within only a few years because this boomed for IBM. And I loved this. Again, it was an opportunity to manage teams because then I was building these teams. It was very new, very big for IBM. And I spent 13 years there, Fred. It was a big part of my career. I was in the UK, obviously a huge US company, but I was given a lot of responsibilities because I was pretty much one of the key leadership teams that wasn't in the UK, it wasn't in the US, outside of that. So a lot of people depended on me for kind of the rest of the world, really, which was great. So I love that.
Was it natural? Because we talked in our pre-interview and we've talked, since then about, and I don't want to get too much veer off subject, but I do want to bring this up, the tech side, somebody that comes in, right, with just the tech side and then the leadership side. And it seems like you naturally didn't really seem to struggle with that. That's kind of what probably helped prop you up so quickly, your ability to communicate with people, because I imagine that there wasn't many people who could do that on both ends. What was that transition for you like? Because you kind of just fell into it, right? Into the leadership side.
There was always an element of learning the tech, and then if you speak to any cybersecurity professional, whether it's a leader or technologist, they're always having to keep up. And it's the pace of that has changed. It's just accelerating, especially with things like AI and everything else. So you need to stay on top of that. Now, I knew that would always have to be the case. But what I began to notice was that it was the thing that seemed to differentiate me from my peers is this ability to communicate and have this kind of connection with people. So I continued to invest in that. It wasn't a case of you're not a leader instantly. You have to constantly keep learning. And by the way, you learn from mistakes. You make a lot of mistakes as well. And if you look at the book that we produced, a lot of that is based on all the mistakes that we made as well. So, I went through that career in IBM, failing fast, making mistakes. But in all that time, even though it was a technology company and that was something that was obviously helping me move forward, the thing that seemed to accelerate my career more was my ability to communicate with people, distill complex things into through meaningful conversations. And at the center of that was definitely leadership. And I know that leadership is the thing that's been at the core of everything I've done from then to where I am now.
Well, that's a great place to somewhere I want to go, because I want to talk a little bit about adversity, leadership, and what you call your Superman moment, because we brought it up earlier, right? I mean, but really when you're thrown into, I don't want to speak for you, but you learned there was a global crisis. You really kind of were thrown into it. You didn't have the level of experience that, expectedly, and you somehow thrived and managed to get through it. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was literally within only a year of being in the role. I distinctly remember this. I was sat at my desk, typical Tuesday morning, I think it was, and one of the executives in our floor department walked up to me and went, "Darren, what's going on?" And I'd seen some traffic beginning to build up because we had another screen on one side on our email traffic, and it was starting to go up, but I wasn't paying too much attention of it because, bear in mind, viruses wasn't a thing. It wasn't happening every single day. So it wasn't something that you kind of expected to happen. It was very few and far between. And he walked up to my desk and went, "We can't seem to send emails and we're not getting emails coming in. I think there's a problem." Anyway, so then I looked at my own emails, could see these emails coming in saying, "I love you," Fortunately, I hadn't clicked on them. For anybody
Your
who
wife
didn't,
got nervous,
yeah,
right? She's like, who's sending these
yeah.
messages?
Who's sending
Exactly.
these
Right.
emails?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And for anybody that doesn't know, who's not of a certain age, this literally was an Outlook-based virus that would come into your desktop through your email system. It would say, "I love you." So you obviously the curiosity. You'd open the attachment. The attachment would connect itself to all your email addresses and send the same email out to everybody. So everybody would get an email from me saying, "I love you." So, a lot of people were curious. And if my wife got one, I'm sure she'd be fine with it and open it. But a lot of her friends would get it, and I'm sure they wouldn't be thinking the same thing. So, but yeah, that literally brought our systems to its knees, and it caused billions worth of damages right across the world. Well documented. And back then, that was more for notoriety, the hackers that did that. It wasn't about gain for money or anything else. We obviously know in today's world that a lot of that type of activity is all about, gaining money. There's still some notoriety and upmanship against certain hackers trying to outdo each other. But it really was back then just about outdoing each other. And it wasn't long after that everybody was taking cybersecurity obviously very serious. So I was then brought into boardrooms. Literally, it was like that happened. And
how did you dress by then? Were suit or no? You were like a tech guy. Were you wearing like what? A polo? Like what?
I was. Back then, by the way, Fred, it was in an office. You were wearing shirt and ties. Actually, it was kind of it was kind of the thing, less so these days. But yes, I was already. It wasn't an expensive suit or expensive tie.
Right.
Shirt. It was.
Right.
I was only young at that time. So, but yeah, but I can just remember going into those boardroom situations extremely nervous, and quite frankly, I remember communicating in a technology way, and they get these blank looks from people. But then I learned, because the CIO was my boss at the time. Remember coming out of that meeting and saying, "Down, the next time you go in, you'll need to communicate in a different." So I was learning on the job, which was great.
So okay, Darren. So let's get through now. Okay, so you're hit with this. You're going in, right? You're not really sure to communicate. Probably right? You're nervous.
Yeah, nervous. Yeah,
sweating a bit in that inexpensive student tie. Wasn't a clip on, right?
No,
you actually tied it, right?
No.
Okay, well there you go. Right, not an American type clip on. So all joking aside, but you managed to get through it. So how did that work? How did you get through it? I mean, it was a Superman moment for you, right?
It was a Superman moment, and I think the one I did enjoy it in a strange way, although it was nerve-wracking, everything else. And I thrived on the fact that all the attention was on me. And if, I won't lie, the ego kicks in to some degree. And I felt like the person who they were looking to solve the problems. So not only was I in there trying to solve the problems, but the attention was on me from very senior leaders in the organization. And that didn't go away. So this kind of Superman moment, and I know if you look at a lot of people in the industry, that they thrive on this ability to put out fires, deal with very stressful moments when some people can't. And I think this is something that's kind of differentiates a lot of the kind of cybersecurity professionals, even today, is that they know they're going to be in those stressful environments. They thrive on it and do well. And some people get out, some people stay in. But for me, it was one of those things that I think probably from a lot of the background that I'd had, Fred, of dealing with quite stressful, quite volatile moments. If anything, it gave me the right background to be able to deal with those situations and enjoying it, and enjoying the attention, and recognizing that was a kind of a moment in time that is going to continue. I didn't think that it was ever going to be going away fast. So I saw it as an opportunity, really, as well.
Well, I have to say this. You brought something up that really hit me personally, although we come from different worlds in a sense. But I think that folks who struggle with ADD, or struggle, it's a gift also, but we want to, well, I can tell you for me, because I worked in politics, right? So I was like the kid who freaking could solve things that nobody else can. I don't know how half the time, right? You couldn't explain it. And I didn't write the plan down. It just happened intuitively. And it's almost like, for me, and I'm guessing the same for you, one, just to show everybody that They couldn't do it. Like the highest level people, and we're doing it like this. You got that smirk, and also probably being underestimated at times when we were young, right? Like, oh my God, look at this, and we can eat you like your conventional ways, and we're going through the side door and back door. I imagine that was the way. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I have a feeling. And that smirk, right? That little smile, walking into a room, eyes up, and almost laughing to yourself.
Yeah,
That you did it. You ever feel like
yeah,
that?
that really
Right.
resonates, Fred. Honestly, because I was literally in a room that typically they will have come through the school system, they will have gone through colleges and universities in many degrees. So I was definitely in the room thinking a little bit differently. You know what? This is something I've noticed that even in cybersecurity, I remember people actually advertising for people who were on the spectrum, actually.
Right.
They were finding out that those particular skill set, autism was one of the skills that, that kind of mindset, they were looking for that. So, and this is what I do believe even today, this is where diversity really plays a key part in cybersecurity. So building diverse teams with people who think differently is super important. This is why I think women diversity, people on a spectrum. What do you believe? People who can tell a great story. We've even had situations now of where organizations are employing poets, people who think about literature. Yeah, because they're thinking differently.
Wow.
The narrative.
I can tell great stories. You have a good job for me or what?
Yeah, well, I'm sure we
Right.
can get.
Right. Exactly.
I'm sure
Right.
there'll be a job for you but telling stories, because
yeah. Right.
if you want to engage somebody in a narrative, you need to be able to tell a story. So I think this is where the game has changed.
How has adversity shaped your leadership style and approach to cybersecurity?
Yeah, look, when you deal with when you're in tough times, you need to find a way. You don't have any alternative but to find and fight your way through it. And we all know that when you're in tough times, you are going to get knocked down. You are going to make mistakes. We know, Fred, this universally is how do you get back up and fight and have that resilience? So resilience is something we talk about a lot in cybersecurity. Is you definitely need resilience in your infrastructure. There's a lot about personal resilience. And I think that personal resilience, I realized back then it was grit and determination. That gets you so far, actually. But what I think gives you the edge beyond that is something else that I've learned more recently, which is you need to look after yourself. If you're going to have personal resilience, physically, your body needs to be in good shape. So I work out every day. That's a key thing that I do. I eat the right foods. I keep myself healthy. And as we talked about earlier, Fred, I've been doing meditation now for, I don't know, probably the last 7 years, I would say it is. That's been a game changer. So you add all those things together, it allows you to deal with adversity. So the great determination, not everybody's had that. We know that some people will come from a background that's more privileged than others, but they're still going to have to deal with stress. So what can you do to help them deal with that? And this is where I think like working out, good diet, and meditation. So, and by the way, this is something that I didn't believe was just important for myself. It's something that I talk a lot about in not only my community in the cyber leadership, which I'm kind of known for, actually, if you look at the kind of narrative that's out there, but in all the teams that I've built. I remember people who joined my team, they said, what's number one on your agenda, Darren? And I would say wellness, well-being of my team. And people would always look at me with a bit of surprise, to be honest.
Well, we can keep going in this, and we're going to do it in the next segment. Rocky Balboa, baby. Daniel Craig, he's coming back for segment 2. All joking aside, what a great time with Darren Argyle. I'm ready for the next segment. We're going to dive deeper into the challenges of transitioning from technical to leadership roles. We're going to talk about the Cyber Leadership Institute, Darren's work with strategic partnership. There's a lot more coming up for you. Darren, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a blast. It's good to see you. And we'll be doing this again. We'll be back with segment 2 soon.